Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Have you ever wondered why politicians are absolutely obsessed with showering us in free money and why it almost always ends in a massive, nationwide economic hangover? Well, if you've ever watched your government suddenly act like a desperate sugar daddy right before an election, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to break down how a perfectly logical, brilliant economic theory got completely butchered by political opportunism.
I mean, it's the ultimate political magic trick, right? Leaders absolutely love turning on the money printer, but they suddenly develop a tragic, completely incurable case of amnesia when it's time to actually pay off the debt. Today, we'll see how a genius concept got hijacked by politicians who basically treat economic warning labels the exact same way we treat software terms and conditions. You know, blindly hitting accept and just hoping for the best.
Section 1. Meet John Maynard Keynes. To really understand this mess, we have to talk about John Maynard Keynes. He's the legendary economist who looked at the Great Depression and realized, hey, the market needs a massive shove. So he proposed counter-cyclical fiscal policy. What does that mean in plain English? Basically, when the economy is in the gutter, the government should step in and spend money like a drunken sailor to stimulate demand. But, and this is the massive, absolutely crucial but that politicians conveniently ignore, when times are good, the government must sober up, hit the brakes, and pay down the debt. You stimulate during the bust, you pay for it during the boom.
And if you want to see how this gets twisted, just look at academic journals on economic populism in places like Latin America. They spell out exactly how this goes wrong. Populists love to slap the fancy Keynesian label on their policies to justify blowing up the budget, just to fund a nationwide shopping spree. They borrow a respected economist's name to legitimize throwing cash at voters, completely ignoring inflation, and totally reversing the actual financial discipline Keynes demanded. Let's be real, it's not economic stabilization, it's just a spending addiction wearing a nice suit.
Section 2. The magic multiplier effect.
So why are governments so addicted to spending in the first place? Well, we have to look at the multiplier effect. The theory is delightfully simple. It's almost like an economic fairy tale. Step 1, the government hands you free cash. Step 2, you take it and spend it at a local shop. Step 3, the shop uses that cash to pay its workers. Step 4, those workers go out and buy more stuff. The money just spins around and around, creating this magical tornado of economic growth. Literally, $1 magically turns into multiple dollars of output. Sounds great, right?
But here is the catch that totally ruins the magic trick. It's called your marginal propensity to consume, or MPC. That's just fancy economist speak for how much of that new cash you actually spend. If you take that government handout and immediately stuff it under your mattress because you're terrified of an impending recession, your MPC is zero. And if you don't spend it, that magical economic tornado dies instantly.
Section 3. Populism's selective amnesia. Now enter the populist politicians. They absolutely loved the spend money part of Keynes' theory because it gave them an academic excuse to play Santa Claus with your tax dollars. But while Keynes prescribed stimulus as emergency medicine for a sick economy, populists treat it like a daily energy drink. Remember, Keynes said, spend in a bust, save in a boom. The populist policy? Spend in a bust, and hey, spend even more during a boom to buy the next election. They've basically mutated a stabilization tool into a permanent campaign strategy. Honestly, if Keynes were alive today to witness this hijacked, bastardized version of his life's work, he wouldn't be cheering. He'd be face-palming into another dimension. The guy designed a life jacket to save drowning economies, not a luxury yacht for politicians to cruise to their next election victory on a sea of public debt.
Section 4. Do cash handouts work?
So, we arrive at the multi-billion-dollar question. Does simply throwing cash at people actually work? Well, a massive meta-analysis of over 130 studies reveals the global average economic multiplier for cash handouts is a dismal 0.5. Just let that sink in for a second. For every dollar the government borrows and hands out, it generates only 50 cents of economic value. That is literally a negative return on investment. The magical economic tornado? Yeah. It's actually just a very expensive, very pathetic breeze.
But you know, context is everything here. Compare Japan's 1999 flop to China's Hangzhou experiment. Japan handed out 20,000 yen vouchers with zero strings attached, and the multiplier was practically non-existent. But Hangzhou? They used digital coupons that actually forced people to spend their own money to unlock the government discount. Because a copay was required, the multiplier shot up to between 3.5 and 5.8. It turns out, when you just give people free money, they act entirely differently than when you actually incentivize them.
So why does the populist multiplier fail so spectacularly most of the time? There are 3 painfully obvious reasons. First, people are smart. They get scared of the shaky economy and just hoard the cash. Second, they use it to buy imported goods, so you're effectively taking your stimulus check and using it to stimulate another country's economy. And third, people just use the handout to pay off their existing crushing debts. None of this creates new, local jobs.
Take Thailand's recent, highly debated 10,000 baht digital wallet handout. Economic research shows nearly 13% of recipients just use that money to pay off existing debt. And sure, that's great for the individual, absolutely. But from a macroeconomic perspective, it totally kills the economic tornado. The money just vanishes into a bank's balance sheet to cover old loans, rather than circulating in the local market to create new wealth.
Section 5. The economic hangover.
So what happens when you continually pump borrowed money into an economy with a depressing 0.5 multiplier and entirely refuse to pay off debt during the good times? Welcome to the hangover. Funding unproductive public handouts with debt causes what classical economists call crowding out. The government borrows so much money that it literally sucks up all the available capital, driving up interest rates and starving private businesses. You're basically burning your own house down just to keep warm for one night.
And the timeline of this game is tragically predictable. Phase 1, a populist politician wants to win an election. Phase 2, they borrow billions to shower the public in indiscriminate handouts. Phase 3, you get a tiny, fleeting sugar rush of consumption. And then Phase 4, the money runs out, the multiplier fails, and the country is left holding a giant bag of crippling public debt, higher taxes, and skyrocketing inflation. Ultimately, these purely populist demand-side handouts create nothing more than a temporary illusion of prosperity. Think about it. They don't build factories, they don't educate workforces, and they don't upgrade infrastructure. They are quite literally stealing the wealth of the next generation just to pay for a politician's popularity today. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Is the fleeting sugar rush of a political cash handout really worth the crushing, multi-generational debt hangover we all eventually have to pay for? Next time a politician offers you free money to fix the economy, maybe ask them if they've bothered to read the second half of Keynes' book. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.